What's up, guys? Justin here from Tame Type 1, and today we're going to do a little bit of a cooking video. By request, by popular demand, and also by the fact that I promised it a long time ago and never did it, we're going to do a video about making halloumi cheese. Halloumi. You might have never heard this before. I would understand why. Halloumi is also known as grilling cheese. You can not grilled cheese, but grilling cheese, as in you can grill the cheese directly without it melting, without it losing shape. It's a wonderful cheese. You can just throw in the pan, you can throw in the grill, you can throw in a panini press, air fryer, whatever you like, and it will sear both edges and get nice, warm, and crispy on the outside and melty on the inside without losing shape. It's a wonderful cheese, great for type 1s like us. It's a great option to have a fried cheese or a grilled cheese without the bread, without the breading. And today I'm going to tell you how you can make it yourself. It's not too hard. It takes around 3 or so hours depending how quick you are. Let's go ahead and get into it. First, we'll go over the ingredients here. Now, what you'll need to start is you'll need the stock pot right here. You'll need a nice spoon to stir it with, preferably a nice wooden spoon. You'll need small measuring spoons that you can get from the cheese making website that I got the recipe from. I'll link that recipe below in the description. You'll need a knife to cut the cheese. You'll need this for measuring citric acid. We'll talk about that later. This is like a cheese ladle, great for scooping cheese out. You can also get that from the cheese making website. You'll need measuring cup. You'll need this rennet, very important, animal rennet or vegetable rennet, either one. Again, this comes from cheesemaking.com. Again, I'll link that all below. You need some salt. Get some coarse salt, some kosher salt, something like that. Just not regular salt. Get like the coarser stuff. It's going to mix better when we make the cheese. Any cheese is going to need some salt, so just go ahead and buy some of this if you don't have it. Some distilled water for mixing the rennet with. And of course, we have our milk right here. Now, I use raw milk, raw goat's milk. I get it from a local farmer. And this is going to be ideal for any cheese, is getting some nice, good raw milk, either goats or cows. Try to get it raw. That's going to be your best. You're going to have to add less. It's going to be a lot healthier for you too. Now, if you can't get raw, you can get milk too. Make sure it's not ultra pasteurized. And also, you're going to have to get this calcium chloride here if it's pasteurized. If it's ultra pasteurized, it's no good. You're not going to be able to make cheese with it. But if it's just pasteurized, you're going to have to use this calcium chloride with it. And also, you're going to have to use this extra culture, this C21 buttermilk culture, which again you can get from that cheese making website. I'm not showing for them. This is it's just a good resource. All right. So, assuming you got raw milk, that's all we're going to use. We're going to skip these two things. We're not going to need any of that. Citric acid, that's for later. This is for later, and we'll go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do, of course, we're going to take our milk here. We're going to put it in this pan. We're going to put it in this big stock pot, stainless steel. And we're going to heat it up to about medium and just slowly heat this bad boy up. And once it's heated up to about 88 degrees, we'll, and obviously you're going to need a thermometer too for that. Be sure to have a thermometer that can measure precisely. But we have a cheese thermometer we're going to use for this. And once that reaches, not 88, but around 80 to 85, we'll go ahead and take it off the stove and it'll heat up the rest of the way automatically. And from there, we'll add the rennet in. But let's go ahead and heat it up. Now, as you're heating it up, you're going to want to stir it. Stir it pretty frequently, because if you don't stir it, the milk that's on the bottom of this pot, it's going to get too hot and it's going to burn. And that's not what you want, obviously. You don't want your milk to burn. So if you're using it on a stovetop, you're going to just want to stir it frequently until it gets up to that proper 88 to 90 degree temperature. While we're waiting for this to heat up, by the way, we're going to go ahead and prepare our rennet here, because this rennet stuff is strong, all right? You only need a tiny little bit of it, and it's going to act very quickly. So it's best to dilute it first with a little bit of this undistilled water. You don't want to do chlorinated because the chlorine can mess with the good bugs in that milk, right? So try to get some non-chlorinated water, like this distilled water that I have, and you're going to mix 1/4 cup of it with the rennet, all right? Now the reason we want to use get this little measuring spoon set is because normally you can't find stuff like 1/8 of a measuring spoon of a teaspoon, 1/8, 1/16 of a teaspoon, so on and so forth. But for this recipe, for many cheese recipes, you'll need that. For this one, if you're using raw milk, specifically if you're using raw milk, you want to use 1/8 of a teaspoon of the rennet. That's how little rennet you need. And you're going to dilute that into the 1/4 cup of water. And once it gets heated up, we'll add that in. If it's just normal milk from the store, not ultra pasteurized, just normal pasteurized milk, you'll be using a 1/4 teaspoon of the rennet. So you can get away with not getting this if you already have a 1/4 teaspoon. All right, if you're just using normal milk. But again, raw milk's going to be better. So try to find a good source for that. If you need help finding a source, by the way, you can go on a website called, I believe it's realmilk.org, realmilk.com, and they have a finder where you can always find it wherever you are. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this into here. And then once this is bad boys heated up, we'll go ahead and do our business. All right, so 15 minutes later here, according to my little cheese thermometer, we're at about 86 degrees, and you want to heat it up to around 86 to 88 for this recipe. Some of them vary depending on what you're doing. This one's a high heat, so you want to bring it, we don't mind bringing it to 86 to 88, but normally you do want to get it around that temperature. And by the way, one thing I want to stress is all your equipment, your stainless steel pot, the spoons, all of your utensils, make sure everything is sanitized. You don't want any bad bugs getting in your milk, right, as it's aging. Because it's a cheese, you know, cheese needs bacteria, but we want to get the right bacteria in there. So now that it's at the proper temperature, by the way, I turned the stove off when it was about 80 to 82 because, you know, once you turn it off, it's still going to keep heating up if you leave it on that stovetop for like another few degrees. So now that it's sort of slowed down, it's a solid 86, 87. We're going to go ahead and add our rennet in that we've mixed in here. And we don't need this anymore for now, so we're going to take that out. That way it's not in our way. We're going to add this bad boy in. Voila badoop. Get all those drips, and then we're going to immediately stir this for a good 30 seconds. Now, why for 30 seconds? Because we want to make dang sure this rennet is fully incorporated and uniformly mixed, and it's not going to be all chunky or anything, all right? We want to uniformly mix rennet, because this rennet is what's going to coagulate the milk, okay? So it's very important that it's thoroughly and very conformed in the milk. That's why you gotta stir a lot of it. You know, you can give like an up and down motion to it if you want. But stir that for at least a good 30 seconds. Now, once you're done stirring, what you're going to do is you're going to bring the milk to a slow halt, like so. Make sure it's nice and stopped. Make sure it's nice and still. Pull that bad boy out. Drip, drip, drip. Put it to the side. And then you're going to just leave it alone. We're going to put this lid on it here. Leave that bad boy alone for about 30 to 40 minutes. Don't touch it. Let it just sit there. It's going to coagulate. And when we get back, we're going to do a break test to see if it's ready for the next phase. All right, we've waited 30 minutes, and now what we're going to do is, I've already done it once, I just wasn't recording, so we're going to do it again. We're going to do what's known as a clean break test. We're going to take this knife, we're just going to insert it in here, sort of give it a little slice like that, and then slowly lift it up to see if it breaks cleanly, and looks like it is. So this cheese is ready to go. Now, if the whey was very foggy or something like this, well, it might mean you might need to use more rennet. Too late now, but better luck next time. And now that that's good, we're going to go ahead and cut this in sort of a checkerboard pattern. This is why you want to use a steel pot and not Teflon one, right? It's going to get Teflon on your freaking cheese. And after that, we're going to let it sit for a few minutes, and then we're going to split it horizontally, okay? So just like so. It'll look something like this, and you're just going to let it sit, and then we're going to do the same thing. We might use actually this ladle, and we're just going to sort of go around it to make it so that it's in cubic pieces, and then we're going to start stirring it and heating it up. All right, now that we have cut them, both horizontally and vertically, we're going to turn the heat back on there and start stirring these because we want these to slowly heat back up while we're stirring them to around 100 to 106 degrees. And what we're doing now is we're basically sort of cooking the cheese. We're moving it around and we're using heat to sort of knock a lot of the excess moisture and whey off of the cheese. And to do that, it's going to mean less draining time, and also, it helps develop the bacteria in it, increase the flavor, so on and so forth. So we're just going to cook this cheese and for about 20 minutes or so and get this heated up to around 100 to 106 degrees. And of course, when I say, 20 to 30, cook 20 to 30 minutes to 100 to 106 degrees, I mean like, don't immediately get it to 100 degrees and then start waiting 20 minutes. I mean, over time, over the next 20 to 30 minutes, you're going to get that to about 100, 106. And then actually going to keep cooking after that, but we'll get to that in a minute. So I've been stirring this for around 15 minutes now, and the temperature is already at 105. So, got there a little bit faster than 20 to 30 minutes. It's tough to get that right. You really got to start at a pretty low temperature and just keep it there. I had it on like medium low, and that was a little bit too much, so I brought it down to low, but it was already getting too hot too quick. But anyway, it's okay. It's no big deal. It's not that delicate. The important part is what comes after this sort of cooking step. So it's not a huge deal. I've never had trouble making halloumi before. I've never screwed it up. But anyways, what's going to happen now is I'm going to keep it at this temperature. I turned the stove off, but it's still on there, so that way it's still keeping the heat. I'm going to keep it at around this temperature for another 20 to 30 minutes and just stir intermittently. So like, every 3 to 5 minutes. And after that, we'll be ready to separate it from the whey and get to the next step. So we've let this cheese here cook for a good 45 minutes. You can notice there's a lot more whey now than we started with, and the cheese is in much smaller pieces. That's what we want. And now what we're going to do is we're going to separate the whey. If you notice, I have a second pot here just for this purpose. And what you can do is you can simply fit a colander over this and pour it in there so that way the whey drains out and all this up is the curds. I'm going to use this cheese form here because that's what's going to end up in anyways. You might want to get one of these as well if you want to try this, but a colander works fine too. Essentially, you're just going to go ahead and drain it in there now. I don't think I can do this while holding my phone. I'm just going to show you the result, okay? So what I ended up doing is a lot of the whey just poured right out without the cheese coming with it. So I actually have this handy dandy little tray and this wire thing here that I was able to sort of scoop the, put this little thing on, scoop the rest of the cheese into and have the whey drain that way. And you can just have this sort of on its own weight, press it down a little bit to make sure it's good, because what's going to happen in the next 20 to 40 minutes, however long this takes to heat up, because this is the next step I'll get in a moment, is that's going to form, and I want that to form a nice solid shape there. But anyways, now that the whey is drained, the next step is we're going to heat the crap out of this whey. Why? Because what gives halloumi its hallouminess is the fact that it goes through a high heat process with this whey. What we're going to do, and we're going to get some bonus ricotta out of this too. You believe that? We're going to get some bonus ricotta, cheese, extra cheese. My goodness, we get this cheese and we get more in the whey? Yes, that's right, folks. Anyway, we're going to heat this cheese to around 180 to 190 degrees. Super hot, probably the hottest you're going to get from most cheeses anytime. And we're going to put this halloumi back in there once it's hot enough. And by cooking it in this high heat, that's going to make it stable for the high temperatures when you're grilling it, you're frying it, so on and so forth. So let's heat this up, and while this is heating up, make sure that you might want to put a weight on this. I'm going to go ahead and get me like a big bottle of hot sauce or some, like 1 or 2 pounds is enough, honestly, to sort of squeeze this down a little bit and get it formed. And every 15 to 20 minutes, make sure you flip it if you can. I actually have a second form here that I'll probably just flip it into, so that way it's consistently draining, all right? Now, let's heat this bad boy up. So, as the halloumi forms, we're going to heat this whey up, and we're going to make some ricotta cheese with this. So, because we got to heat it up anyways, and to make ricotta cheese, you need to heat up whey. So we're gonna kill two birds with one stone and get a clear whey out of it. And what we're doing now is we're going to heat this up ultimately to 185 to 195, but once it hits 150, we're going to add an eighth of a teaspoon of this citric acid to it. Again, that's why you good to have that tiny little teaspoon thing that from cheesemaking.com. And we also will add a little bit of milk. Now it calls for a pint of milk, but honestly, you don't really need that. I mean, I'm just going to add a little bit of this heavy cream to it. The citric acid is there to help increase the yield, and the heavy cream, or they call for a pint of milk, whatever. That's just to increase your richness. No, it's not required, but it's going to increase your yield and increase the goodness of it if you have those. So keep that in mind. Now, important to note that you add the citric acid about 150, but you add the milk, whether it be a pint of milk or heavy cream or whatever you want to use, you add that at about 165 to 170. So just keep that in mind. And also you're going to add a teaspoon of salt at that 170 range with the milk. That way it'll give it a good flavor. All right, you always need salt with your cheese no matter what you're making. All right, now that this thing is about 185 degrees, I'm going to let this sit for about 10 minutes. If you notice, you can already tell there's a bit of a separation between the liquid and some of the white solids. And so 10 minutes, we're going to let this just sit here and chill, and the ricotta is going to float up, and we're going to take it all out. Now that this ricotta has sort of floated to the top really well, we're going to use this cheese ladle here to sort of gently scoop it into this other mold with a cheesecloth lined around it. And then we're going to have that drain. And once we're done with that, we're going to use the clear whey that's left over to heat up this bad boy. We're going to keep that at about 190. Alright, so now I scooped up just about as much of the ricotta as I can to here. Got a decent yield there. It's going to make some nice snacking. I couldn't get all of it as you see, but I mean, you know, it's hard to get all of it. I mean, eventually you're just getting scraps here. You could try using a strainer like this to try to get a little bit more of it, but ultimately you're kind of just getting crumbs at this point. So, you know, we're letting the last ride. We're just going to get a couple more scoops out of that, and we'll call that a day. And we're going to heat this back up now to 190 to 195, and then we're going to throw this bad boy this way here that it's got had a nice little bit of weight on it. I had a big bottle of hot sauce sitting on there. I was able to get it nice and good. I flipped it. It should look like this, you know, nice 1/2 to 2 inch disc of cheese, and we're going to slowly lower that in here using that same cheese ladle. You don't want to get it too, you don't want to just slam it in there because this pot is hot and it's just going to stick to the pot. Right? So you want to slowly, gently get it in the liquid there, and once it's in there, it's going to go to the bottom, but you just let it sit. It's going to be in there for around 20, 30, 40 minutes. Once it floats to the top, that means the cheese is ready, all right? So we're going to throw that in there. As you can see, this cheese is now floating on the top here. You can see the tippy top of it all the way through. So now we're going to pull that out with the ladle here, and we're going to put this on a cutting board to flatten out into a proper disc. Ooh, look at that. Of course you want to do it while it's warm, but remember, it's pretty hot, so be gentle with it. And you can just press it down with your hands until it's like a nice, you know, thick patty, kind of like that, right? And what you do then is you pat down to a nice circle, put your about a 1/2 ounce worth of salt over one part of the surface after you flatten it, and then you fold it into a crescent. You can also add mint and stuff like that, but I'm not going to do all that. Instead, I'm just going to flatten as much as I can. I want to get it real flat because I want to try making something called truffles. More on that in a little bit. But I'll show you the end result here when it's done because, again, kind of holding the phone with one of my hands here. All right. Now, I just sort of used a rolling pin here to really get this nice and flat. You don't need it this flat. You can probably go with, I don't know, double that thickness and still be fine. As long as you can sort of fold it into a crescent. Me, I'm not going to. I'm going to go ahead and put this ½ ounce of salt in. And this is like coarse kosher salt. It's better to use like a cheese salt, which is like a medium grind. Just don't use a fine grind because it's not good to use like just normal salt. Try to get coarse, try to get kosher, try to get a cheese salt, right? But this is what I got. Yours might look a little bit denser, a little bit smaller of a circle, a little bit thicker, which is great. That's fine. I'm doing it thin because I have some experiments I want to do, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and just sprinkle this on the entire surface here, just one side of it. And I'm going to cut it up into pieces, and we're going to call that a day. Well, that's how the cheese is made, at least the halloumi cheese. I think I might do a bonus, depending on how the experiment goes, where I'm going to see if I can make this halloumi cheese that I've flattened out and I've cut into pieces. I'll show you. Make it into a waffle of some sort, a chaffle even. Stay tuned for that. But I think in total that took around, with cleanup and everything, just over 3 hours. So as I expected, around a 3 hour thing. For cheese, it's honestly pretty short. You know, it doesn't get much shorter than that, except for like maybe a quick mozzarella. So nice and easy, you know, pretty simple for the most part. You just have to have a little bit of patience, have to have some time at home to do it. Not very easy to mess up if you just follow the instructions. And tomorrow I'll let you know, oh, I'll mention this as well. Once you flatten out and you get your salt, you want it to sort of age for a little bit. You can eat it fresh, but it's better to have it age for a little bit, 3 to 5 days. And it will last for maybe a week or so, just like that. If you want to keep it for longer, for like a few weeks even, or a month even, make like a 8 to 12% brine to put it in. And that cheese making website that has recipe on it, they'll have ways to do that. You just gotta look it up on there. I'll leave it at that as far as making the cheese goes, though. It's late. It's 11 o'clock. I gotta go to bed. I'm sleepy. But see you tomorrow when we try this little experiment. And I hope this video, I know it's not really about diabetes, but I hope in a way it can help you tame your type 1. All right, it's the next day, and we have our cut up halloumi here. I have cut this one up into like a thin disc, as you can see. Now you wouldn't probably want to have them this thin, probably like twice as thick is fine. Like I said in the video, this is kind of experimental, the thinness I'm getting it at, but I'm doing it for a reason, because here we have a tiny waffle iron, and we're going to try and make chaffles. All right, it's experimental. Let's see if it works. So I got my olive oil spray here. Avoid the seed oils, right? We're going to spray that, and we're going to see how it goes. Honestly, it kind of smells a little bit like waffles right now. I'm not sure if that's because I didn't properly clean the dash from when I used to make keto waffles with it, or what. But, you know, so far so good with this experiment. It's smelling quite nice. Looks like it's ready. Let's see how it is. Ooh, quite interesting. I see we got nice sort of grid pattern of singe marks. Maybe I should have done this a little bit thicker, actually. Better luck next time. But this does look pretty good. Let's see if I can get it out of here, all right? And with just a little bit of work, we were successfully able to get this cheese waffle, this chaffle, in a pan here. It split on me a little bit, but hey, that's all right. Let's give this a try. Oh, damn. Okay, a little bit thicker next time, but that is a banger, dude. Absolute banger. Mmm. Delicious. Experiment success.